Good morning, Instagram. I don't know that anybody is awake yet, but that's okay. Trying to play around with some lighting and just kind of getting things right in this little corner of my office. It is not ideal. The camera on my Surface Pro is not nearly as bright as the one on my camera on my phone. So it'll be a little dark this time until I get things worked out. It's Saturday morning here in Gilbert, Arizona. So you pretty much get my Circle K face, and I'm still wearing pajama pants, and you don't get any more than that. Sorry. Next bit is I just want to throw a big thank you out to Suddenly Samantha and Mika for just being really supportive and being very helpful, and Mika this morning for her Trans Avengers call out really increased the followership this morning. So as I promised, here is my first live video. I don't know if it'll be first of many or just the only one. While I'm doing this, I just want you to know I am working very hard to not have a whole lot of verbal pauses because I hate that. And if you have any questions throughout this, go ahead and leave a comment below. I can see them coming up. I did get a few comments and questions from a couple of people yesterday, so I'll just kind of go through some of those and start with that. So, finally Danielle, she wrote first, where am I from? What do I do? I'm from Flint, Michigan, so maybe that water problem means a lot about who I am. Maybe not, I don't know. But the most of my family is still back there as well. So out here in Arizona, it's pretty much myself and a couple of cousins that are left. Everybody else has gone back to Michigan. I don't know why. It's really cold. As for what I do, I work in IT and facilities, kind of to bridge the gap there at CVS Health. And I work with corporate properties administration and working with the IT department to get projects done to varying degrees of success. I think I've been in IT since 97-ish, facilities since 2007. And then Samantha, she had written a couple of questions. A couple are deeper that I don't really want to start with. She says, first, what methods did I use to develop my voice? And this started, well, one, I've always had a soft voice. So I don't know if you guys can even hear me out there because I'm not certain that I'm speaking loud enough. In high school, I'd been told my voice was very soothing, which I think means it puts people to sleep. My wife, she's always been pretty good about hearing where my register falls, so even in a crowded room, she's the only person that can hear me. And sometimes that's good for if we're being snarky, but not necessarily so good if I want to be heard in a crowd. Great, thank you, Mandarific. Hey, hi, good morning. So, things that I did to develop, though, started off a couple of years ago. I went to the VA, and they have voice pathology services for trans folks, and for veterans in general, but specifically for this. And the first person I saw was a male voice pathologist who really only worked on pitch. He didn't understand differences between masculine and feminine speech patterns, and really it was just about pitch. And I already started off at right around high end of male, and he gave me exercises, pitch glides, just throat warming exercises, things that I would do for, during my trip into work. And this was May or June of 2017 I started this. And I would just every day, my hour-long commute, I would go in there and I would just, in my car, and just do these things. I don't have any sort of good Pitcher inflection, I'm sorry, that was almost a song, don't do it. But I did that for almost a year and just realized that I wasn't getting much out of his practice or what he was teaching me. So I switched to a different voice pathologist. And she started working a little bit on vocal mannerisms, not a lot. She got me doing the, recording. And being that I'm terrified of my own voice, I hate it. I did a test run yesterday of doing a video, and I just simply hate my voice. And it's not a masculine or feminine voice thing. It's simply I hate my voice. And so hearing my voice whenever they would play it back always gave me just serious grump and something stuck. The video froze. Did it freeze for you, and did the audio freeze? Hello? And then I went to, kept going to group at the VA, and about 2 months ago I started up again. And this time the voice pathologists have come out of the ASU Vocal Training Center, which is awesome. And they have a lot of good ideas for what it means to have a more feminine voice. They have a full program there, and that's a feeder school for the Phoenix VA. And because of that, they have a lot of different exercises that have to do with softening the hard bits, the G's, the T's, the K's, elongating the vowels so that it's not quite so terse. And our favorite that we love to discuss is the lip spreading, which is the speaking with a smile on your face, which people can hear. And mostly it's just I spend a lot of time in the car, so I have a lot of time to practice. I sing along to every song that I know, poorly, but I still do it in my own pitch, and I do it trying to sound as feminine as possible. So it's just a practice, continual practice. And thank you, Samantha, for that question. And I see you just joined. Good morning. Let's see. I'm going to wait on your other questions, Samantha, and for a little bit, just because they're a lot more in depth. Let's go with some from Nolan Paula J. So, a fun, simple one is, how did I end up choosing purple hair? And I will tell you, because it's awesome. I don't know if you can see this through the light. No, you can't. The lighting in here is strange. The camera on this computer is weak. So, in the late 90s, I was dyeing my hair red, and I got very, bright red, Elmo red. And I got very angry responses to that from people in general, like going to Subway and having somebody literally from across the subway, "You look like a fucking rooster, what's wrong with you, rawr?" And it was kind of jarring. And then a bit later I switched to blue, and we're talking bright electric blue, and people loved it. Like anybody, it didn't matter. I'd be walking around the apartment, people are always saying, "Oh hey, just how'd you do that?" And people asking me how I dyed my hair blue is, I don't know, maybe they were just starting conversation? I don't know, because it's, for somebody who already has their hair dyed to ask me how did I get it blue is pretty strange. But, you bleach it, you dye it. So that was then. And good morning, Kenny Reality, and good morning, Ayahos. Alejos. Is that... I gotta make sure I pronounce that right, but I'll never be able to. I live in Arizona. So this time around, I stopped dyeing my hair in probably 2005 for work, and got into management roles, dealing with customers. And good morning, Paula. And because I was dealing more with the customer base, the company didn't want me dyeing my hair. So I finally was working from home, and in the job I have now, I don't deal with external customers. So I decided, it's time, let's dye it. And this time I think I saw a purple wig on somebody and it just looked fantastic. And it was just, I love it. And I haven't been able to get that purple because it's not a wig. But I have been able to play with the purple color palette and I like it quite a bit. Purple has become quickly one of my favorite colors. It's a different shade of purple than my wife's favorite color. She likes the purple and lime green combo, which I think is fantastic. I'm a little more of an eggplant kind of person, but that doesn't sound right. Yeah, so I just like the purple and I'm really happy. So, like Ale Jose. Ale Jose, okay. Great. Thank you. And good morning, Allison. And what do I like to do for fun? Oddly, this is a question that my wife had the night that I came out to her. And she was like, well, does this mean you have to give up all the things you like? And you still don't know what those are. And no, I still like my motorcycle. I love to ride. I still like off-roading and camping, though I haven't had a chance to do it much. I still love all the things that I've loved. I love to read. I play Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes kind of religiously, maybe a little more than my wife would like. And for the most part, those are the things I do. I see a lot of movies. I love to go to movies. I got the A-list thing from AMC, and so you can see pretty much 12 movies a month for $20. So if you've got the time, it's a really nice way to go and spend some time in the theater. And the theater I go to is really under-attended, so it's nice to be able to just see movies on the big screen, get the experience without all the crowds and children. Do I camp in Payson? I don't normally camp in Payson. It's somewhere south of Young, kind of northeast of Roosevelt is my favorite spot. I don't know which Hogwarts house, because though I've read the books, I don't remember which house means which. I mean, I'm Gothy, so I'm supposed to say Slytherin, I think, but I think it has more to do with the mood I'm feeling that day. A couple others from Paula were, what branch did I serve in? Hi, Pedro. I served in the Army. I went in 92, straight out of high school. I was in the delayed entry program. I didn't realize at the time I was trans. I just kind of hated myself. But I was also raised to believe that I owed something back to the country for being lucky enough to have been born here. And so I was going to go in the military no matter what. I chose to enlist as an airborne ranger because I wanted to be the most high-speed hoo-ha motherfucker I could be and show them that I could really be manly and kill. But by the time I got to RIP, which is the Ranger Indoctrination Program, and we lived in the Ranger Barracks at Fort Benning for a little while because we had a month holdover, I realized it's like living with a football team, and that was just way too much male aggression and asshattery that I couldn't deal with on a daily basis. So the Old Guard recruiters came around, and the Old Guard is the 3rd U.S. Infantry out of Washington, D.C., and it's the ceremonial unit, mostly doing funerals in Arlington and surrounding cemeteries, change of command ceremonies, things like that. And we definitely did a lot of spit and polish. I was an ROTC all in high school, so I liked the drill and ceremony and the I liked that presentation of it. I did get diabetes after being there a year, and I was medically discharged for infantry, and diabetes don't mix. So I got out in '94. Have my wife and I gotten closer since I came out? That's a bit of a hard question. I think that would be a better question with her. here, because in some ways we've definitely gotten closer. We always thought we were pretty close, but before I came out, I was also very suicidal, and she wasn't aware of that. I hid that from her. And I think that me coming out and no longer being suicidal, like literally switch flipped as soon as I, not from coming out, but from my self-acceptance. And then finally telling her how suicidal I was. You shouldn't know what the barrel of your pistols taste like. She was more hurt about that distrust, that I didn't trust her to tell her how bad off I was. So we've rebounded from that at the same time as me coming out and transitioning. So I don't know if it's from the transition or if it's because of just a more open, honest communication between us. But we have been very close. And in some ways, I think it helps that I can understand some of the emotional and hormonal issues that she's had to deal with growing up. And part of her reasoning of why would I want this, she grew up cis woman. She kind of hates it. She does not like the hormonal thing. She thinks puberty is a cruel joke played on happy children. She has fairly large breasts, and they hurt her back. She's like, why do you want boobies? They suck. I'm like, well, I don't really want any of this, but it's here, and there's not much I can do about that aspect except roll with it. So we've been able to bond over a lot of fun things like that. But we've always had, other than like deep stuff for me, we've always had a lot of fun in our relationship. We've always been very close. We laugh a lot. Love to do road trips. That's how we knew we were made for each other, was going to Comic-Con San Diego in 2000 and just not killing each other that weekend. In fact, we got back together after we'd had a bit of a breakup for my own mental health. And I think, I don't know if it's closer, but has definitely evolved into, I think, stronger. That's for sure. I don't know if I want to answer Paula's "where do I see myself in 5 years" question, because I have no idea what I want to be when I grow up. I'm always going to just keep on learning and see where life takes me. But I do have some advice for my 18-year-old self, and anybody else in here that might be a little bit younger and worried about this. I learned this advice yesterday. I was yesterday years old when I learned this, and that is, it is okay. Anything worth doing is worth doing mediocre. I have always been a perfectionist, and it's been something that it has really created an all or nothing type mentality for me in a lot of things that I've tried to do over the years. And as I get older, I realize that I can't do everything perfectly, and I still need to try. And if something's worth doing, you still need to get as much done as you can. That was what, at 18, I didn't know I was transgender. Sorry if I forget to look at the camera. This is new for me. I didn't know I was transgender, so I wouldn't give like trans advice about that necessarily, but I think the advice I just gave is really goes across a lot of my life. Why I was drawn to the old guard in the military, it was precision drill, precision uniform maintenance. Everything was very tidy and crisp and clean. When I would do martial arts, I was always about the forms and being very precise, and it had to be, it was very rigid in that. It was with my artwork. If I was making something, it had to be exactly like I wanted, or it was crap. Doing the bricklaying in the backyard, like if the bricks weren't perfect, I was going to have a fit. And some things I can't do perfectly, and that doesn't mean that they're not worthwhile ventures. So I think getting to a point where I can accept that not everything is going to be perfect and still worth doing is so important, and I wish I had realized this a lot sooner than yesterday. I think my life would have been a whole lot easier in a lot of ways. let's see, we got fun 18-year-old self. So Paula also asked, when did I realize and accept that I was transgender? 99, October 1999, after Halloween, so I guess it would be November 1999, I realized that was more than just fun to dress up like a woman for Halloween. I told my girlfriend at the time about that, and that this was really enjoyable, and I want to consider doing this more, and she broke up with me. She said that wasn't what she signed up for, even though she was the one that helped me be the best woman I could be for Halloween. That wasn't her bag, and I understand that. And she wasn't a great person anyway, so it worked out for the best. But at the time, the online resources, I didn't know anybody who was trans, and the online resources were pretty weak. Everything at the time of 1999 was you were a cross-dresser, a tranny, or a sissy, and that was pretty much it. I mean, the transgender word was already in the lexicon, but it wasn't in common usage. And so the boards I was finding were really focused on people that fetishized being female. And so it was hyper-femininity. It wasn't realistic femininity, it was an ideal. And whether it was for sexual intent or if it was just a way to get all that out there, I don't know for everybody it's the same. But there's a whole bunch of yays and yippies, and the reason I realized I was in the wrong communities is the first time somebody tried to explain to me how to tuck, and they're like, well, make sure you also put a wad of toilet paper down at the end of your wiener, because you're going to be dripping so much pre-cum, it's going to be crazy. And I was like, well, no, it's not really what this is about for me. It's been a thing of I thought I was a cross-dresser. I thought I was fine being a man who dressed up sometimes as a woman. My wife met me probably dressed in a skirt and corset, because we met at a goth club. And I was going to goth clubs because it was a place where I could wear skirts and corsets. Turns out I liked the music, I liked the people, and the aesthetics, so that worked out great. But it was one of those things that I knew but didn't know. 3 years ago, after Wild West Con in Tucson, I started growing my hair out. Mostly I was thinking it was for cosplay stuff. And then as it was getting longer and I realized it was looking a lot more feminine and I was really happy with it, it made me think that, boy, I could really, maybe I should transition. I need to consider this again. And I was still scared, though. I was running a data center facility here in Arizona. I was in charge of the electricians and the HVAC and the physical security and the janitors. I worried that transitioning would undermine my authority. It would make people no longer respect me, and I couldn't do my job. And because of all that, I just kept suppressing it. And Alejo, I have your question there, and it ties in with another one I'm answering in a little bit. And it kind of tags onto this. So I got to the point where, it's just like, well, I don't know, I want to do something, I want to say something, I don't know. And then I got fired in October 2016. I was like, just let go, kind of out of the blue. It was a political decision. It had nothing to do with job performance. It was just the company, the higher-ups in the company didn't like that I wasn't a yes man, and that can be brutal in certain environments. So during the job search time, I went and I visited my friend Bobby. If you ever watch this, Bobby, hello, it's Bobby Ann. She's out in San Jose, and she's amazing. She's been a friend since the 90s on IRC. And she had come out a couple years prior, and I just went to visit her for, I think it was her final party before her surgery, her bottom surgery. And I realized when I was out there, it's like she had so much support from so many people in her community that there was a lot of love to be found there. And that kind of did give me some hope. And then I came back home, and I sat on that for a while, and I rode my bike out there, my motorcycle, and I told my wife, I'm like, I was thinking, and she goes, uh-oh. And I knew in my head, she's thinking, oh, you're thinking you're trans. And that wasn't what I was thinking at the time. All I was thinking was, I should take more road trips on my bike, especially while I've got the time. But her response to that, and I picked up immediately what she meant, made me repress that again. I got a new job. I got my job with CVS on April 3rd, 2017. And within 2 days, I already had looked up all of their research, all of their information regarding LGBT, their human rights campaign, 100% company. They seemed very supportive. And so I had to make a note here of when. So my epiphany, my acceptance, happened April 9th, 2017. I made a note of it. That was when it was in, if you've ever been in dialectic behavioral therapy, they have a thing called radical acceptance, where you just peel back all the layers of bullshit and you look at reality for what it is and accept that is what reality is. And that was the moment I had. That was the day I stopped having suicidal thoughts. Literally like a switch. And it doesn't mean I'm not depressed sometimes, most times, but I still have anxiety. I have a lot of issues, but I have a path forward. And this ties into Alejo's question of how far have I gone versus how far will I go in the trans process. I'm transing real hard, as I can. But I started HRT in June of 2017. Been doing that consistently. And I have my bottom surgery scheduled for April 29th of this year. So 2 years, almost 2 years and a month from acceptance to a major milestone. But at the same time, that isn't the defining moment. It won't be. It's a huge portion of body dysphoria, and I hope it helps me regain some intimacy with my wife, because at this point I kind of hate my body. It's really disgusting, and there's a line that I don't understand between gender dysphoria and body dysmorphia, and I don't quite know where mine falls. It's a little Venn diagram that overlaps in the middle. That's Tommy, I think. So, how far am I going to go? I think I'm going to have to just say for the rest of my life. I don't know what that means as far as top surgeries. Probably not facial feminization surgery. I look at my family. I look at the women in my family. As my wife said when we went back to Detroit last year, oh, I really fit in here. So I think with my family, it's big German stock. We all kind of look like this. So I think the surgery down below, I've done a lot of hair removal, probably going on 70 hours of electrolysis, mostly on my face, some down below. Most of my body's had 7 or 8 laser treatments, just ramping it up and try and get rid of the body hair. What grows back now is, for the most part, the light blonde stuff, except for my face. I have a lot of work to do on my face. But what grows back is like any cis woman would have for the most part. So I still have to shave my legs. I still have to, shave my armpits and those things. But it's not different than most women, which is good. And Samantha had asked, when did I know that GCS was the right choice for me? I knew that back in 99 or 2000. I knew if I was going to transition, it would be all the way. It would be, because I never half-assed anything. You either do it or you don't. There is no try. It's very Yoda. And that's, like I said, my epiphany yesterday was it's allowed to do things halfway sometimes. It's better than no way. And Jen, if you ever are watching this, thank you for that bit of advice. But I knew back then, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. And some of the way that I dealt with it was through body modification, not being able to get what I want, I pretty much stuck holes in everything. Tattooed, both my arms or sleeves all the way up and down, and I have had 15 piercings, only 6 of them in my head, and that left a lot of holes in the bottom bits. And in a way, it was. I always thought it was taking control of my body, doing something for me to take control, and as well as to prove to myself that I could handle the pain, the discomfort, whatever. I think the worst was the ampulang, which, if you're not familiar, is straight through the head. It was didn't heal well, and then I had appendicitis in 2 weeks, and so I got over it being infected and being horrible, had to take the jewelry out to get my appendectomy, and then never put it back in. So that was for nothing. So some people would call that self-mutilation. I paid somebody to do it, so I don't know if it was self-mutilation. But it was, I see now in retrospect, it was me trying to find ways to modify my anatomy to be something that I was happy with. And as for how does my wife feel about bottom surgery, I think I'm going to leave that one for if she ever gets on Instagram and decides to say something. That's her answer to give. She's been very supportive of me. She's been, she knows that this is something I want to do, I feel I need to do. And it's definitely a financial burden on the household. And she doesn't like that. She doesn't appreciate that. Neither do I. But as for emotionally and physically, she's very supportive of me doing what I need to. That was another thing. The night I came out to her, which I think was the 19th of April 2017, a couple weeks after I'd come out to myself, she, one of the first things she says is, "I'm not going down on you." I was like, well, at least we're having fun. So we're laughing among the crying and the anger. But I had, since starting HRT, I'm not a sexual person anyway, so it doesn't matter in that regard. It's more about my body aligning with my brain than it is about full functionality in that regard. And so we're still able to have fun with each other. She's a lot more into cuddles and snuggles than anything else anyway. So there's a question that Samantha had asked, and that was, is the VA doing enough to support trans vets? That one is it's a hard question to answer. There are numerous facilities around the country, Veterans Administration medical clinics. Almost every major city has one. Every single one is supposed to follow the same rules. They don't. Every doctor within a hospital is supposed to follow the same rules. They don't. And so part of this is due to just a lack of spreading out the information. The trans community is pretty small. We serve in twice the frequency in the military as in the general population. So if there's, I don't remember what they say, we're like 0.5% or something of the general population, then it would be 1% of the military is known to be trans. And so it's a kind of a large population. I'm in Phoenix, and the VA clinic there has some very good LGBT coordinators, and they have some excellent advocates in mental health. They provide, as a whole, they provide a lot of services, and this is going to be important to any veterans watching that may be wondering, what does my VA provide? They're supposed to provide. They provide hormone replacement therapy. They can provide voice training if they have the voice pathology departments, counseling. Mine also does group counseling, which is fun, more of a support sessions. In prosthetics, for the trans masculine folks, they have packers and binders and stand-up devices. For the trans feminine, they have wigs, breast forms, and bras, and gaffs. And then also for people that have a surgery date, technically they're also supposed to provide laser hair removal, which, yes, laser, not electrolysis. It's strange, but all of these things have a great big caveat, and that is, if the facility doesn't have the resources in-house, they're supposed to find those resources out in the community. And this is the same as somebody that lives 60 miles away from the closest VA. Like, they shouldn't have to go into the VA for a simple appointment. They should be able to go to an outside provider, and then they bill back to the VA. The thing is, a lot of these relationships aren't created in the metropolitan areas, so that, we just found out in Phoenix that our care coordinator down in mental health was able to work with prosthetics and get somebody, an outside company that does packers and gaffs, so now those are available through our VA. And so technically things are supposed to be available. I think the word doesn't get down because there aren't a lot of us, so a lot of people don't interact with us. They don't ask about it often. So in our case, every single one of us asks for the same stuff, just so that people in prosthetics understand there's a demand. And a lot of people are afraid of the VA environment. And I will tell you, 20 years ago, I used to go to the VA and wearing my skirt and had my blue hair, and I had a lot of friction, a lot of aggression in the waiting rooms that I just haven't seen this time around. For the last 2 years, I've been going there. I go to my weekly group full of trans people, and usually, we're sitting in mental health in the waiting room waiting for this group to start. And so you're thinking, if anybody's going to give me crap, it's going to be in this room, because that room is volatile. And normally it's the response, as you're hearing, as you're walking back, it's just, wow, there's a lot of them. Like, that was about it. Like, it's never been much more. And so it's been very, very positive out there. But remember, too, this is Arizona. This is Phoenix. Phoenix is a very red state politically, but that's because we are fiscally conservative. And so most people vote for fiscally conservative representatives. And so, yes, politically we look very red. Ideologically, at least around the Phoenix area and down in Tucson specifically, it's a lot more balanced and a lot more left-leaning as far as social responsibilities. And I know down in Tucson, for instance, they also do a thing at the women's clinic on Tuesdays, I believe. What is it with Tuesdays and LGBT stuff? But on Tuesdays down in the women's health area of the Tucson VA, they have trans clinics. That's specifically so that trans people can come and get care, and the PCPs that are there, all the specialists that are there, know to gender them correctly. And it's VA policy that if somebody has the documentation and chooses to change their name legally, they will change it in the system. They were one of the first and easiest organizations to change my name through. They changed it on all of my logins. They changed it on my ID card. Historical records that are online are changed so much as all of the identifying markers, but like within notes, it still shows my old name. But they are really on top of it for that. And most doctors, if they're doing something where they're misgendering or they're calling you the wrong name, tends to not be malicious. It's out of ignorance, and it's because they're not used to it. And there aren't a whole lot of us, so they don't see it very often. And VA medical facilities tend to be training, learning facilities, teaching facilities, so you end up almost always with at least one or two student spectators in the room. And like, that doesn't matter what you're there for, though. It seems like it's because I'm trans, they all got to come look at me and gawk, and I'm a science experiment. And it's only kind of the case. We're all science experiments, especially at the VA. I mean, you look at veterans, or people who already donated their life to this country. So when you're asking for somebody to do a favor, these are people that are already inclined to give favors. It's, and so, getting people to go in there and watch and observe, to me, it doesn't bother me. But they're also very respectful of, no, I'm not comfortable having that student in here while you measure my breasts and my testicles for shrinkage. Then, okay, they'll leave. It's the way it goes. So, Sonic the Hedgehog, hello! And then I said, I asked for the same thing in prosthetics. What stuff are you talking about? What I was talking about in prosthetics, for the trans men, the packers, which look like a wang in your pants, binders to bind down the chest, and stand-to-pee devices so that you can pee at a urinal. For the women, wigs, breast forms, bras, and gaffs to help conceal the genitals. So those are things that kind of across the board everybody's putting in an application for. Not everybody's getting, but they're trying. Let's see. There we go. And I just covered that. So the other piece of this is with the VA is not the VA medical centers, but the Veterans Administration as a whole. The Veterans Administration is separate from the federal, than the military. So military guidelines regarding care that they can give, surgeries, things like that, are not the same as the VA. The VA has a specific exclusion. The VA Medical Center has a specific exclusion for surgeries. So the only time that they will perform a surgery is for like life-threatening medical conditions. So a trans male who has breast cancer can get their mastectomy, and that's almost been hurtful. I've seen in groups where when it came out in their notes that they were trans masculine, the surgery that they had to get rid of cancer was delayed because they thought it was for trans-related surgery, and so they had to go back through the process and make sure that no, this is for a health reason. For trans women, orchiectomy, or removal of the testicles, is something that can be done for testicular cancer, but they're not going to do it for getting rid of testosterone. So there's some delay there in what public is asking for and what they have, but that is a specific exclusion that's called out in the rule set for the VA. There was a proposal last August that was out for public comment to change that. In our current administration and the legislative environment, the likelihood of that changing in the next 2 years is pretty small. So we all do what we can within those constraints. And the other piece is your discharge paperwork and your paperwork. The main file you have when you're in the military, not just the discharge, is your DD-214 and Department of Defense 214. And on there it doesn't necessarily say gender, but it has your name and all the stuff about what you've done in the military. And you can apply to the VA to get that changed. And each branch of the military has their own review board. So I applied in December 2017 to have my name changed. I still have not heard anything back, denied or approved. It takes a long time. So mine's through the Army. I understand the Air Force, the Marines are pretty good about changing it, which seems backwards. The Navy was kind of difficult, but that's just anecdotal evidence of people that I've talked to. So there's a long way to go as far as that. I think a lot of this comes down to it's government money, because it's paid for by taxes. It's not a lot of money in the grand scheme of things, but because it's publicly funded money, a lot of the public has a lot of opinion about it. And when we're talking about 1 or 2 pennies a year from each individual regarding this care, it really isn't much, but there's a lot of emotion in the game, and that makes public opinion very important, and so people rile up their bases and try to get change. In the meantime, the people of the VA, all they're trying to do is serve the vets the best they can. Any VA system that I know about is understaffed, has way too many customers, and frankly, that isn't a whole lot different than most of our medical system. The horror stories I've gotten regarding so many friends of mine that are nurses, they're just, it's one of those things where it's like, this is just our healthcare system in America and around the world in a lot of places too. Even places with socialized healthcare, yeah, they provide all these services, but you might be on a 4-year waiting list. So nothing is perfect, but it is what I use. And for my own surgeries, I'm using my private healthcare insurance through my job. They'll cover the bottom surgery. They don't cover top surgery, feminization, anything like that, but this is considered medically necessary. I know some places, like some places, they don't. I lost my train of thought because I read a question here. I just totally lost my train of thought. I'll have to go back and look on the rewind. So somebody said the speed of care has a lot to do with the size of branch of service. That might be for active. For veteran care, it is a bit different, unless you mean the review board size. But when it comes to speed of care as for who gets care, it has to do with your rating, whether you are, any veteran, if they're not dishonorably discharged, gets the right to VA care. And then you're put in a grading scale of your priority. So 0% or no service-connected issues is the lowest priority in that regard, as well as non-critical issues. So if we're looking at just getting appointments and things like that, the spouses are the very last. Spouses over 30%, over 90% rating of a deceased service member. They're the very last, and then it's no service-connected disability, and then it goes on. You're rated 10, 20, 30, up to 90 or 100% service-connected rating. The higher you go in that, the more you get priority. I find that also is your issue service-connected that you're there to see about or not. So I'm diabetic. It's considered service-connected because I got diabetes while I was in the military. For right or wrong, I will take it. That has saved my life many times. They can put almost anything as a subset of diabetes problems. So almost everything that happens to me is service-connected. Somebody who has tinnitus, the ringing in their ears, and they're 0 or 10% disabled because the ringing in their ears, if they're going in because they've, I don't know, for any other reason, just for primary care physician, or maybe they've got the flu or something, that doesn't count towards their priority for getting appointments. So, one last statement that's important for anybody that's a veteran that may be checking this out. I find that the primary care physicians are the most overworked, and in our case, it's almost all nurses now, nurse practitioners. There are very few doctors in each clinic, so each site might have 1 or 2 attending doctors, and then a bunch of nurse practitioners and registered nurses that report up to them and take care of the workload. That might be normal in all hospitals. I don't know. But primary care tends to be where I see the worst care. And I think it really is just a volume and a numbers thing. When it comes to these specialty clinics can be harder to get appointments at because of the sheer volume of people, but the care that they give is often a lot higher because they have the means within their department to focus more on their issues. So, do you mind me asking what the price of bottom surgery? Well, the price depends on where you go. So, like here in Arizona, in the Phoenix area, there's Dr. Meltzer and Dr. Lay. They're out of a clinic in Scottsdale. They take some insurance, but for the most part, you pay out of pocket to them, and they will assist you with trying to get reimbursed from your insurance company. and their cost, last I knew, was around $30,000. So that to me is pretty high, and I don't know if that is just the surgery or if that's also the inpatient care afterwards, follow-up visits, all of that. I don't know if it's all in. Where I'm going in New York at Mount Sinai, Dr. Tang is performing the surgery. They wouldn't even talk to me for a consult unless I had unless I had insurance. And with that, it comes down to my insurance plan. So for me, I have a high deductible and a high out-of-pocket max. So I've been saving since I started getting, I knew, as I said earlier, I knew immediately if I'm coming out, I am transitioning and having bottom surgery as part of it. So I immediately started just cramming as much money in the HSA account as possible so that it'll cover a whole lot of my out-of-pocket expenses, out-of-pocket max and all of that for the year. And I think, let me check, that's all the questions that have come through. I think I saw everybody's as they happened. Alejos, thank you very much for all of your questions. They're lovely. I like to see feedback. Same thing on Instagram. Likes are neat, but I think what I find even better is interaction. I love comments. I love being able to have this exchange. A lot of people on Instagram are just sitting there perving, and that's fine. I don't care. I'm pretty open about everything. I don't have a whole lot of shame. As long as I'm in control of who's shaming me, then I'm okay. Let's see, have I done anything to get rid of testosterone? You're welcome, Paula. I have. Part of my human resources hormone replacement therapy is goserelin, which is an android and gonad blocker. It's an inhibitor. I don't make testosterone currently. After surgery, I won't make it naturally at all. Anyway, so a lot of people are on spironolactone, which is an uptake inhibitor. So your body makes the testosterone, but it can't use it. The thing I am on, my body doesn't make the testosterone in the first place. Great. Well, I've been sitting here, I think, about an hour. I didn't start a timer, so it seems like that long or longer. Thank you all for everybody that has sat here with me, and we'll try and do this again sometime. This is pretty fun. It's a bit cathartic for me to just sit here and blah, but I definitely hope to get more questions from you guys in the future, and maybe we'll have some other people on and we can discuss side by side and have some conversations. Thank you all very much, and have a lovely weekend.